Alright, welcome back. We're going to be doing a new project today. Today we're going to be going over animations. So we started a new project, obviously in Eclipse, as you've seen in previous episodes, that generate our main XML. Okay, for our main XML, we created three different sections. A section for a frame animation, a section for a spin animation, and a section for a fade animation, obviously giving each one a button. I'm going to put up all the source code so you can take a closer look at it. But it's very basic XML, which we've learned in previous lessons. Each section has a text view, which is just a label for the top. The image view, which is what we're going to manipulate with the animations, and a button that will start the animation. Okay, so let's start off with the frame animation. So frame animations can work a lot like picture books that you have in real life. You have a few frames that you flip through at desired speeds. So I'm closing everything off, so we go through one by one. Okay, it can easily be achieved in Android by using an XML primer. You create something called an animation list. This animation list will tell Android what to show and for how long to show it. So we give it a name. We're going to need this later when we put it in our main XML. One shot means if it's going to keep running continuously, or just go through each animation once and then finish. And then our identifier for that's Android. Okay, now each item we put in here is going to get a frame, and we're going to tell it by duration how long we want it to have, which is in milliseconds. So created 5 images of just a stick man. Oops, sorry, open it through GIMP. GIMP is a great program for editing pictures. That's free, works a lot of the ways that Photoshop will work. So if you need something that's free and semi easy to use and has a lot of functionality of Photoshop, highly recommend GIMP. It's also available for Windows, originally comes from Linux. But let's open it in Windows Viewer. Open with Picasa will work. Okay, so if we just toggle through our animations, we see it just drew a kind of dancing animation. Very simple. You can do anything you want, so that each frame is obviously going to be a frame in the final animation. Now I varied up the time frames here just to give it like a little bit of uneven flow, so you can see the difference in the animation. You can make these anything you want, the durations. Obviously you don't want to make them very small, because then you won't be able to see the difference, or unless you want to create an animation list that's extremely long and make them smaller. Okay, so let's go back to our main XML. Now in the image view here, our source is actually going to be the frame animation. Okay, so the XML that we created in Drawable, you can put it in another folder if you'd like as well, but I'll put it here in Drawable. So this XML has each state of the frame animation, and we're attaching to that drawable. So now let's go to our main activity. Okay, our main activity, very empty as you can see. We just grab each one of our buttons and add a listener to each button. And listeners for this project created in a separate class each, which just put it all in main. You see a lot of stuff in this project that obviously you don't want to, in a larger project you don't want to do certain things, like you'd want to put the listeners in their own separate package, and you'll see some magic numbers. You don't want to use those if not possible, but since this is a small example, just put everything in one package. So let's go to our frame animation. Okay, now first you'll see that it extends animation listener. This is a custom class that I created because each animation is going to need to grab an image view to do the animation on. So I created like a father class for all the classes that are the listeners, and it's just going to basically, part of the constructor is going to grab the image view and then put it and store it locally so that we can use it later. And you'll see we're going to need that. Oops, sorry. We're going to need that here when we get to our onClick. So in our constructor we just do super, and then our previous work that we did in the father class will take care of everything we need. And then here when we get to the onClick, we need to grab the drawable from that was passed over. So when we, in the main, if we go back, you'll see when we set each one of these animations, we give it the image view that's tied to it. So we give it the frame view, and these are the views we're going to be manipulating later, and that's very important because if, for instance, we pass the scale view to the frame, then this would crash, because here we're expecting this to be an animation drawable, and it's really just a drawable. So here we grab the drawable, and we're going to click stop first in case there was a previous version running, and then we just start that frame animation, and then it'll go by what we've written in XML, and it'll work. So let's pull up the simulator. Now I did this one in landscape. If you go to the manifest, you'll see here that it's landscape only. The reason I did that was so that it has more room. You know, this could easily be done in portrait as well, just this gives it a little nicer view ratio, and I think it's a little nicer for the user to see it in this format. So here we have the frame animation. If we click start, see he does his little dance, and you can click it again, he'll do his little dance again, and again you can vary up each frame how much time it's going to take up in the screen by editing the XML. Okay, the next one we're going to go over is the spin animation. Spin animation comes from the animation class, which is a few others as well. We're going to look at the alpha animation. There's also a scale animation. So the spin animation, again, from the main activity, we're going to attach the listener and give it the image view. And then when it's clicked, we're going to do a little different magic. There's no XML attached to this. This is everything we do in code. So you see here we're grabbing the height and the width of the object. Now the canvas here, again, remember this is from our father class, so this is the actual image view. So we're getting the height and the width because we want it to spin around the center. Now you can have it spin around the like corner if you want, or any of the corners. I did it so you just spin it around the center for the animation. We're going to set the duration. The duration is how long the animation will take. So here, sorry, I forgot to mention that we defined it from 0 to 359 degrees. That's the spin it's going to do. It's going to go from 0 degrees to 359 of the image and spin around the center, and it's going to take about 2 seconds for it to spin. And then here we grab our image view and tell it to run this animation that we've created. So rotate animation is from the animation class. This is a standard Android class, and we just pass it to our image view, and then it will know what it will perform this animation on this image, the canvas image, which, as you can see, is the same stick man. And when we click the start, it spins it around the center of the image. So once again, you know, we can change it so it could spin it around this corner or another corner. In fact, let's just change it real quick just to see. So for instance, we put in 0 here and 0 here, and we run again. Give it a second to reload, and we'll see it should spin around the top left corner. Okay. Now if you see it spinning, it's kind of hard to tell, but it's spinning around this corner here because it goes so much off screen. But anything that's within the boundaries of the image view, it'll display it, and then obviously when it goes outside the boundaries, it's just not going to display anything. Okay, so let's change that back, and let's get to the last animation for this tutorial, is the fade animation. So here did something a little different. Obviously we attach our listeners to the buttons as normal. Grab the button and set a listener, and passing it the scale animation. Let's refactor that. Originally I was going to do a scale, but decided on doing a spin animation. So just fix it up in the code. Okay, so back to the fade animation. So the fade animation passed the button, pass it the image that it's going to manipulate. Now for the frame animation, go to the listener. Sorry, not frame. The fade animation. We go to the listener, and I added a boolean. Now this boolean was just to add a little extra functionality to the button. So I'm going to say that you can fade in or fade out. To make it even a little nicer, we could have maybe changed the text of the button to say fade in, fade out, but for this example, we'll just leave it as is. So we create it with this faded is false because it's obviously the stock image. And then here we're going to use the boolean to decide if we want to make the alpha. The alpha is the kind of visibility of the image, go from 0.5, which is less alpha, so more transparent, to 1. So if it's already faded, we're going to make it back to normal, and if it's not faded, we're going to fade it to half. Okay, so this is all the code we needed. We created again another. This is not an XML based. This is a code based, a Java based animation. We create alpha animation class, which also derives from the animation class in Android, and we set it according to the boolean. We want to switch our boolean as well. Duration again 2000. Set fill after that function will make it so that when the animation finishes, it keeps it in the current state of the image instead of returning it to how it originally was. So this is important, so keep it faded until we click the button again. So let's see how that looks. So we click the button, you see it fades it to about half. Now it's getting darker because also the back is black, as you can see. But the alpha is really the transparency, so it can take on any characteristic that's behind it. And we click it again, and back to normal. Not sure what the hiccup was with the color scheme. But that was our tutorial for today, going over some quick animations that you can integrate in your project. Frame animation, by the way, can be great for creating your own custom spinners. You can have a little animation run while the user's waiting. Important thing to know about frame animation is that it probably won't work if you try to run it from the start of an activity. So here you see we're running it from the click of a button, so that's fine. But if you try to run this start, go back to frame, if you try to run this start from the on create, or sometimes I think as well on start of an activity, the important things haven't been initialized yet and it won't work. But for a spinner for on wait on a user activity, it should be fine. Obviously, like if the user clicks a button, you want them to show a waiting thing, shouldn't be a problem. So if I'm going to put all the code up on the site after this tutorial, and if there's any questions, if you find any mistakes in the code especially, please let me know.